Hello and welcome. This is Chris Van Buren and Marc Gafni talking about the 11th hour. We're here to dive into something very core and fundamental about where we are and who we are and where we're going, which is very much about this 11th hour program, but also beyond that. And Marc invited me to do this, and I'm thrilled. I'm honored and thrilled. And so, Marc, why don't you talk about what this means? The foundational piece that we're here to talk about.
Fantastic, Christopher. First, it's great to be with you. And I also want to invoke our dear colleague and friend, beloved Barbara Marx Hubbard. And Barbara, you're here with us as well. It's been a year since you passed, Barbara, and you actually brought Christopher and I together as we came together to do this 11th hour program, which in so many ways is so much more obviously relevant than it was a year ago. Although we saw it clearly a year ago, right? People were saying, what do you mean by the 11th hour? What's the 11th hour? And the basic notion was that it's all too big to fail. The system can't stop. And as Barbara and I were talking about catastrophic risk, and then what we called the second shock of existence, existential risk. So the first shock of existence is when the human being emerges out of embeddedness with nature, and there's the realization that the skull grins at the banquet, death, the death of the human being. So death presses us into life, and all of spirituality emerges from that encounter with the specter of death. It demands that we live. And then we go through all of the stages of humanity's development, and then we get to the second shock of existence, which is not the death of the human being, but the potential death of humanity, existential risk. And so there's the first shock and the second shock of existence. And what brought Barbara and I together was that we both understood in different languages, and I think, Christopher, you've had your own deep realizations around this, that the only way we can move forward is to answer in a deeper and more accurate way the fundamental questions. And the questions are, where are we? Which is, what's our universe story? The second question is, who are we? And we can't answer who are we until we have where are we? Where are we living? What's the nature of the universe? Right? Is the dogmatic materialist scientism, not science, but scientism notion accurate? That the universe is completely haphazard, random, chance, no order, no telos, no consciousness? Well, that's one answer to where we are. And that's an answer that has been espoused in the mainstream, right, of dogmatic materialism. So that would give us a different answer to who are we. So first we have to answer where are we based on the best sciences, the leading edges of science, exterior and interior. Then we have to answer who are we? What's the answer to the question of who are you? It's the single most important question we can ever answer.
It is, and if I can jump in here, that's why we're really here today talking is because when we think about the 11th hour, and you and Barbara doing this a year ago was quite prophetic. I mean, who could have imagined that we would be here where we are today, where the 11th hour is actually more relevant today than it was a year ago when you created it with her. And here we are talking about the 11th hour, which leads people to think, where are we going? Right? What are we becoming? What are we going to transition into? What is our evolution? But as you mentioned just now, what comes first before that is, who are we? Who are we first?
Who are we? And from who are we? That's beautiful, Christopher. From who are we? Then we can ask, who are we to each other? Right?
Yes.
First, I've got to ask, who am I? Who are you? And then we can ask, who are we to each other? And then finally, we can ask, what's there to do? Right? What's the nature of our purpose? And it's beautiful, Christopher. There was an article a few days ago in the New York Times, and we're in the middle of the pandemic now, right? We're in lockdown, right? We're preparing the 11th hour from this place of lockdown.
Yeah.
There was an article in a series in the New York Times on what's the potential vision of America. In the New York Times, they were doing their best. And so they say, okay, well, we need to ask new questions and find old and new answers. What does a country owe its citizens? Right. What does a corporation owe its employees? And then it was the real question, what do we owe each
Each
other?
other.
But of course,
I remember seeing that myself. Yeah, and I thought the same thing you just said. That's a nice effort. I mean, it's
right.
a well-meaning effort, but they missed it, didn't they?
That's right. That's right, because they're operating out of the old neoliberal narrative, right? Or it's the same as, at its core, it's the same as the neoconservative narrative. They're actually not that different.
Yeah.
And in that narrative, I'm a separate self. And that separate self is in a win-lose metrics. I need to produce and achieve in a very particular way. It's a zero-sum game, right? There's a set of, right, deconstructed values that people are barely holding on to. The good, the true, and the beautiful no longer quite hold any place.
Well, I might even put it this way. People think of it as we're in this particular space-time. That's it. Well,
that's it.
But we're not. We're in much more than a space-time. We're actually in the foundation of becoming.
That's right. Right. That's right. And as we are not only in, there's really two views. There's kind of the view of the Enlightenment traditions, which said underneath our separate self personality, there's this beingness that we share. So that's a good step.
Mm-hmm.
That won't get me home.
Right.
Because I am, the question of who are you that Ramana Maharshi asked, which is the classical Enlightenment question, who am I? And the answer is I am. That's true but insufficient. Right. That is to say, we participate in the same field of consciousness, being, but that's not the whole story, right? We're also, as you said so beautifully, we're becoming. We don't only live in the universe lives in us. Yes. You're direct expressions of the universe. And I am evolution. I'm a unique configuration of evolution, and I'm a unique configuration of evolutionary love.
And the only thing we can count on is who we are and who we are becoming and what we want to be. Not what we want to go, not what we want to have, but who we want to be.
That's right.
That is who we are. So, and I like that you brought up the New York Times article, because the way you and I got together on this idea of doing this talk was about the United States, right? And you had brought up something, and I had mentioned that the American Constitution is like that foundation, that DNA of this thing we call a country, right? It is in essence the DNA that projects our values as a country, who we are.
That's right.
And each of us has our own DNA. Each of us has our own constitution, so to speak. And we as a species has.
That's right. And that constitution, that's a great way to frame it. And that's what we're doing in the 11th hour. And in the courses that we'll do together, yourself and myself and Barbara, under, hopefully this beautiful rubric that you've created and our publishing partners, is to actually enact and articulate a new constitution.
Yes.
We're not interested in, not that people shouldn't do them, all the wonderful spiritual courses and personal development courses that are out there, bless them, and the human potential courses and the fundamentalist contributions and the new age contributions, bless it all.
Yeah.
Right. But that's not what's going to take us through the 11th hour. We need a new constitution. Not just all human beings are created equal, but all human beings are uniquely creative. All human beings are irreducibly unique expressions of the love intelligence and love beauty and love desire. That's the initiating and animating energy, right, of all that is, that lives in me, as me, and through me. It never was, is, or will be ever again other than through me. Right? And as such, I have a unique perspective and a unique quality of intimacy that can foster my unique gift that's needed by all that is. That was just 2.5 sentences.
Yeah, and that unique gift.
Right.
So people are often preoccupied with what's my purpose, what's my gift, where's my unique value, what should I be doing? And I say, if you nail who you are and who you are becoming, your gift will reveal itself. You don't have to go find it. It will find you. So focus on who you are becoming. What is your unique constitution? What is that unique self symphony that you, using your language, your wording, or as Barbara says, your unique, your heart's desire,
the way we would talk about it is, right?
Yeah,
yeah. Right. We actually, at the Wheel of Co-Creation, which Barbara created the first version of, so Barbara and I then created a Wheel 2.0.
Yeah.
And we placed at the center of the wheel what I called desire, but desire not in the sense of sexual desire, which is but an expression of something deeper, which is the desire that's at the heart of cosmos.
And what she called the evolutionary impulse, right?
The evolutionary impulse, which Barbara discussed, and of course Julian Huxley, right, sourced, right? This evolutionary impulse is actually animated, suffused with desire. So I'm not just part of the same field of consciousness, you and I, right? Mm-hmm. Marc and Christopher are not just part of the same field of consciousness. We're part of the same field of consciousness and desire, right? Desire throbs through cosmos. As Alfred North Whitehead said, the cosmos has appetites, right? You know, and for an Englishman in Cambridge in 1925, the closest you could come to talking about desire was to talk about the appetites of cosmos. But what Whitehead means is the cosmos has a desire to uniquely incarnate as Christopher, as a unique configuration of the good, the true, and the beautiful.
And I think that's a great place to, let me ask you, because I think that's a great launching pad for this question, which is, so then what is the concept? What to you is the constitution of the new human? And is it unique to each one of us, or is there a constitution for humanity, the new human as a whole, or is it both?
Absolutely, and of course it's both. But let's say it really clearly: there's a shared story. That which unites us is far greater than that which divides us. But this shared story is not dogmatic, right? It's based on the best integrated information of the interior and exterior sciences, right? In every generation, synergized together in a larger whole. That is the new story.
What's the desire that you were talking about a minute ago?
So at the core of it is that every human being is part of the larger field of desire, but is a unique expression of that field of desire. And what we share in common is our uniqueness. We share in common. We're all
there's an irony.
Right. So we're all the same in some very fundamental sets of ways, and yet we're all unique expressions, right, of that same field. So we all share desire. We all yearn for love. We all want to express creatively. We all are moved and drawn by the strange attractor of the good, the true, and the beautiful. We all have shadow and vulnerability, right, and split off selves that we have to integrate.
We all seek truth, and we all seek
truth.
Just fairness and balance.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Right. Mm-hmm. We're all unique expressions of that, and our uniqueness is not just based on our social, cultural, and psychological conditioning. And if we could just get beyond that conditioning, we'd be an I am, or in the absolute. That's not correct. Our uniqueness is irreducible. Uniqueness is not a bug of cosmos. It's a feature of cosmos. Cosmos intends unique expression. And actually, we actually realize that reality at its core, and this is where Barbara and I met so deeply, reality at its core is not a fact. Reality is a story. But it's not an ordinary.
It's a perception.
Yeah. Reality is a fact. Well, let's go slow. It's not just a fact. It's not just an eternal fact.
Right.
You know, Einstein actually thought that the cosmos itself was eternal, and he was so shocked by the fact that the cosmos was a story, that it was moving, that in 1914 he actually changed his equations.
Yeah, he did.
Added in a false cosmological constant because he didn't want to actually reveal it. And and later in his life he said it was the most disgraceful thing that he did. But he was shocked by the notion that reality is not a fact; it's a story. Right now, it's not an ordinary story, right? It's a love story. But it's not an ordinary love story in the sense of a Harlequin romance, right? It's an evolutionary love story, right? It's moving someplace. Reality is animated by eros, or evolutionary love, that uniquely appears in you and me. And one of those qualities, one of the qualities of evolutionary love is desire, right? In other words, reality desires to move to the future.
Let me bring it back to the sort of the individual. It's great how you zoom in and you zoom out a lot when you talk. It's awesome. Like we were just looking at this universal thing. Let me zoom back in to the individual. What does any given single person do and focus on?
So here, beautiful. It's a gorgeous inquiry. So let's say it in like 3 sentences, but don't count. Okay. so let's say in classical Eastern Enlightenment, the inquiry question is, who am I? Which is a great question. That's the first question. Who am I? And the East answers the question, I am awareness. I am consciousness. We go the second step. We take that as a given. That's step 1. Now step 2. Step 2 is, who am I? I'm an irreducible, unique expression of the field of consciousness, but not only of the field of consciousness and desire. I'm an irreducible, unique expression of the field of consciousness and desire. 1. Now 2. Now the second question. There's only one question, which is, what does the universe need from me in the very next moment? That's the question. That's the only
now that gets to where I was hoping to go,
right.
Which is, what's actionable for us, in an individual storyline with my perception of the universe and my uniqueness and my willingness and so on and so on. Where do I go now? What and that's what you just answered, right?
It's the only question. What does the universe need from me in the very next moment? And now I'm just going to say the same thing, Christopher, in just a slightly different way, but you can feel it differently. What does the universe desire through me in the very next moment?
So here's the thing. That can be very, very, both of those things can be very abstract for people. It can seem intangible in a way, like, well, that still doesn't tell me what I need to do. I can meditate on what the universe needs, but what if it doesn't come to me, so on and so on. And I'd like to interject and see what you think about this. Beautiful. This is where we circle back to the DNA.
Right.
This is where we circle back and say, well, then who are you? Express that. Just express that.
And who are you is, right, you're part of the larger whole, but you got to know that. You got to feel yourself as part of the larger whole, part of the larger field of consciousness and desire. You can't skip that. You got to feel that. And then I'm an irreducible, unique expression of the field. But what does that mean? How do I find that? So I access my DNA, and my DNA is my deepest heart's desire.
There you go.
And I shared that with Barbara, this notion, and we literally changed, because we had a key conversation late at night, and we changed the wheel 1.0, which is Barbara's original beautiful, gorgeous contribution. And if you notice in wheel 2.0, there's about 30 differences. But one of them is at the heart of the hub of the wheel, to borrow Barbara's phrase, we put desire. But by desire, we mean your deepest heart's desire, which is the throbbing impulse of evolution beating in your heart that is uniquely expressed. And so therefore, Christopher and Marc, right, we share so much. And yet, I can be in devotion to you because your reality, having a Christopher experience, and your heart's desire will create a different reality than my heart's desire.
So let's if you don't mind, let's do this exercise of, let's equate this back to the United States and the Constitution.
Absolutely.
Because that's sort of the who are we of our country, let's say, our culture. And there's some specific things in the Constitution, right? It's not general, it's not abstract, it's quite specific about certain guidelines, certain values. It's values based. We value equality. The word equality comes right up front. And other kinds of things, balance of power, right? Things like that. That's very specific and very deliberate, right? It's part of the DNA of the culture. How does that translate back to what you were just saying about me, or John Doe, or anybody listening that is thinking, well, how do I find my constitution, right?
So let's feel into it. Every human being is equal in that we all participate in the same field of consciousness and desire. And in that, we are all created equal. Step one. But step two in the Constitution, and every human being is inherently and innately unique. Step two. And every human being has a right to live their unique story, to give their unique gift.
Pursuit of happiness. Has the right to be the pursuit of happiness.
Right. It's correlated, but let's now inverse it.
Yeah.
In other words, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we're now going to inverse it. Happiness can never be pursued. Happiness is a natural byproduct of the pursuit of something other than happiness. Whenever you pursue happiness, it runs away.
That's a great,
right?
There's a lesson and a course right there that can go very deep.
Right.
I like that.
Right. And what's that other thing? Right. Happiness is a byproduct of living your unique self.
Yes.
Right. In other words, so every human being has a right, but we're going to add something, a right and a constitutional responsibility to live their unique self and give their unique gift in the realization that their unique gift is actually needed by all that is. And so every human being has the dignity of knowing that their uniqueness is not dependent on their casual job at this moment. What happens, Christopher, in 30 years, AI has moved forward, artificial intelligence, and according to lots of information, 85 to 90% of people won't have jobs. Right? So that core identity in a job won't exist the way we understand it today in a blink of time. So without the constitutional DNA of a unique self has to be the DNA, right, of our reality, but not just I have a unique perspective. That's one dimension in the amino acid. It's one dimension, right, in the sequence. Not only do I have a unique perspective, I'm a unique quality of intimacy. I have a unique quality of desire. That comes together to foster my unique gift. My unique gift is actually my unique responsibility, which creates my unique joy, right? Which allows me to play my instrument in the unique self symphony, which is this new structure of reality, which is a self-organizing synergistic democracy, a self-actualizing cosmos that actualizes through people playing their instrument in the unique self symphony, joining hands and addressing unique needs in their unique circles of intimacy and influence. That's constitutional.
That is. So we're talking about a new constitution for the new human.
We're talking about literally a new constitution for the new human and the new humanity.
Yeah.
And can I tell you something amazing? Just like a blowaway, and maybe we'll come to a close here. But and I'm going to go wide for a second, but we're going to come right back from wide, I promise. Okay?
No, it's good. I like the zooming in, zooming out.
We'll zoom out for a second. We'll zoom back in. Since we're on Zoom, let's zoom out and zoom in. Okay?
Yeah,
So if you zoom wide, you realize there's the explosion of the Big Bang, and we get matter, right? The whole world, which we call the physiosphere. We go through all the different stages of matter, from quarks to atoms, molecules, cell, right, all the way up until cells. And then we have the world of matter fulfills itself in the world of life. We go from cosmological evolution, the physiosphere, that's the first Big Bang, to the second Big Bang, the biosphere, right? Matter becomes life. So now all of matter's fulfilled itself in life. We're now at cells. We go all the way up, cells, all the way up till neural nets and neural cords and animals, right? And then, right, ultimately we're at early mammals, hominids walking on the savannah, and then boom, another Big Bang. And we go from the biosphere, life, to the noosphere, or mind, or the self-reflective
self-awareness, right? Mm-hmm.
Self-reflective human. That's the third Big Bang.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is gorgeous, okay? So notice that matter fulfills itself in life. Life fulfills itself in mind. Christopher, what does mind fulfill itself in? Where does mind go? So clearly, mind has its own self-fulfillment, meaning we're not meant just to be Homo sapiens forever. There was actually an intuition in the great traditions that there's a next level. That's the new human and the new humanity. Mm-hmm. That's when Homo sapien fulfills itself, him, herself, as what we call Homo amor. And Homo amor is the human being who's invested, amor as in love, who's invested with this new constitution. It's not a New Age idea. It's not a fundamentalist idea. It's actually the realization that constitutionally, we are unique configurations of evolutionary love, not as a metaphor, not as mythopoetics, not as a simile, but as based on the best sciences, that's constitutionally who we are. And therefore, not to give my unique gift, which is my unique expression of evolutionary love, is to be misaligned with reality itself, which is, of course, the cause of depression and breakdown, which is why we feel best or most alive when we're in love with reality and giving our gift, because that's actually who we are. And we've got to literally reconfigure the Constitution, and then we can answer the question of the New York Times. What do we owe each other?
That's great. That's an excellent place to leave everyone kind of thinking, and maybe we'll pick up on that in another video.
What a delight to be with you, Christopher, and welcome everyone to the 11th hour. This is such, we're not, I mean, with your permission, brother, I'll just, when everyone listening, just one more sentence, and I stake my life on this, Barbara staked her life on this, we will not get through this moment, this juncture between dystopia and utopia, this juncture between utopia and dystopia. We're not going to get through it unless we actually evolve the source code itself, which is the best new evolutionary answer to who are you? Who are we? Who am I? What's there to do? Where are we? Which is a new universe story. It's a new narrative of identity. It's a new narrative of community. It's a new narrative of power. It's a new narrative of desire.
Those are the new Constitution.
That's the new Constitution. That's the 11th hour.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Ciao.